Florida is most known for its beaches, palm trees, and warm weather. For most people, the idea that Florida can experience temperatures in the teens or 20s sounds impossible. Yet, this weekend, from January 31st through February 2nd, a powerful Arctic blast is expected to plunge into the deep south and throughout Florida. Forecasts are calling for a hard freeze, with temperatures dropping well below freezing, threatening plants, wildlife, and plumbing across the state. And while this cold front seems extreme, it's happened before. We're looking back at the moments in history when Florida froze solid, when snow fell across the state, and entire industries were wiped out by the cold. This is the history of some of Florida's coldest winters. Florida has endured far colder temperatures than we are expecting, and far more devastating freezes in the past. To understand just how bad it can get, we have to go back in time to more than a century ago. Florida's climate is often described as subtropical to tropical. Florida sits between warm ocean currents and continental air masses. But when conditions align just right, polar air can surge deep into the peninsula, especially during strong winter outbreaks. Unlike the northern states, Florida is not built for sustained cold temperatures. Plumbing is often exposed and not insulated. Agriculture depends on frost-free winters. Native plants and animals are built for warm temperatures. This was felt most notably in the late 19th century, during one of the most catastrophic winters in Florida's recorded history. Florida experienced multiple severe freezes between December 1894 and February 1895. These freezes lasted for days. Temperatures plunged well below freezing across much of the state, including regions that had rarely, if ever, experienced such cold before. During the worst of the Great Freeze, temperatures across Florida fell to levels that had never been recorded before. Northern and central Florida recorded temperatures in the teens, with record lows on December 29, 1894. Temperatures dropped to 18 degrees Fahrenheit in Orlando. Frost extended across the peninsula. Some areas experienced consecutive nights below freezing. These conditions killed fruit and entire citrus trees. Light frost can damage fruit, but usually spares the tree. This freeze wiped out whole orange groves across the state. Even coastal areas that are normally protected by warm waters were hit. Citrus was a major part of Florida's economy. Entire counties were dominated by orange groves, some planted decades earlier. The freeze destroyed an estimated 90% of Florida's citrus crop. In many regions, the groves never recovered. Farmers who had poured their life and soul into citrus lost everything in a matter of days. The orange trees cracked, split, and died. The fruit froze solid. After the first freeze, many of the mature trees survived, only to be killed off weeks later in another hard freeze. As the orange groves failed, towns began to empty. Many farmers simply left Florida, convinced the land was no longer viable for citrus. Others moved south, searching for warmer, less vulnerable ground. This shift permanently altered Florida's agriculture. The citrus industry migrated farther south, laying the groundwork for the citrus belt that exists today. Entire communities packed up and moved south. The Great Freeze of 1894 to 1895 taught Floridians that Florida was still vulnerable to winter weather. It forced changes, and growers began experimenting with hardier varieties. And yet, despite the devastation, many believed such a winter could never happen again. They were wrong. Just 4 years later, Florida would be struck by a cold wave even more extreme, one that would bring snow, ice, and blizzard conditions to parts of the state. In February of 1899, the United States was plunged into one of the coldest winters ever recorded. This event, known as the Great Blizzard of 1899, or the Great Arctic Outbreak, sent frigid air across nearly the entire country, driven by an immense mass of Arctic air that surged south. And the state of Florida, still recovering from the devastation of the winter of 1894 to 95, was directly in its path. The cold brought by the 1899 blizzard pushed temperatures in Florida to levels that remain some of the lowest ever recorded in the state. Tallahassee recorded temperatures at -2 degrees Fahrenheit, the all-time low recorded for the state, and the only negative temperature. Jacksonville 10 degrees, Jasper 5, Crawfordville 3, Defuniak Springs 0, Gainesville 6, Ocala 12, Orlando 20, West Palm Beach 28, and Miami 29. Much of the state experienced temperatures far below freezing for multiple days. These readings stand out in Florida's history as records that have endured for more than a century. For Floridians, the cold was unimaginable. Perhaps the most shocking part of the Great Blizzard of 1899 was the snow in Florida. Snow fell across the northern and central parts of the state, as far south as Fort Myers. Rivers and lakes partially froze. Ice formed on coastal waters. Photographs and written accounts describe Floridians seeing snow for the first time, and in many cases, the only. The cold lasted for days, reinforcing the damage caused by the snowfall. Lake City measured 3 inches of snow, 2 inches in Pensacola and Jacksonville, 1.5 in Gainesville, and trace amounts of snow in Fort Myers. The 1899 blizzard was deadly. Across the country, over 100 people died due to exposure, transportation failures, and infrastructure collapse. In Florida, the cold killed crops, livestock, and wildlife on a massive scale. Citrus groves already weakened from earlier freezes suffered further loss. Communities struggled to cope with the conditions. Florida's subtropical ecosystems were pushed to their limits. Many species experienced population declines due to prolonged exposure to freezing temperatures. For decades after, the blizzard was referenced whenever cold weather threatened the state. It entered local lore. More than a century after the Great Freeze of 1894 to 95 and the Great Blizzard of 1899, Florida once again finds itself preparing for a deep and potentially dangerous cold. As I write this, we are just hours away from some of the most frigid air that Florida has felt in over a decade. As the Arctic air moves into the state between January 31st and February 2nd, temperatures are expected to drop into the teens and 20s, with some areas seeing hard freezes lasting over 12 hours. The cold is not expected to rival the extremes from the late 19th century, but we can't ignore the similarities. The Great Freeze of 1894 to 95 and the Great Blizzard of 1899 remind us of what is possible. Extreme temperatures that can reach far into the Florida peninsula, When the cold front passes, Florida will thaw, the temperatures will rise, and life will return to normal. I want to thank y'all for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed. Stay warm out there, and we will see you on the next. Peace.